My
I knew there
rental.
was some reason why that's.
My Ford Edge is under a recall,
Oh, okay.
one of the airbags, and so they advise lots of people not to drive them.
Yeah,
So Ford said they would get us a rental.
yeah,
So Milo's got their rental, and they had to go through Enterprise to get it.
okay.
So I figured I'm just gonna, might as well drive that, so.
You get unlimited mileage.
We're talking months
Oh,
here.
yeah.
Yeah.
What's
We're
the
talking
refund?
4 weeks.
How much?
Oh, I could have it 4 or 5 months.
What was the refund?
I've already had it.
Airbag.
I'm already on my 2nd month with it.
Jesus.
So, yeah, it's like driving a free car, basically.
Yeah, driving in the ground would be.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've been driving
Take a
quite a
nice
bit.
long trip.
Yep.
I
So,
focus on my area, actually.
Well, I believe it's 7 o'clock and everybody that's going to be here is here, so we call the August 16, 2018 council meeting to order. I don't have a lot of things that we normally have. All council members present except for John Mortensen, Engineer Ryan, Attorney Locum, Dave, I forgot.
Dave Anderson.
Dave Anderson. Had the David, but I wasn't sure of the last name.
Alright.
And Administrative also. Citizens comments. Apparently we have only one person who might comment who has no comments to make. So, are there any corrections or additions to the agenda?
don't have any.
We have
So,
Pardon?
he moved to approve the agenda.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Consent agenda. Is there anything that should be removed from the consent agenda, or do we have a motion to accept that as printed?
So moved.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. We have no presentations, public hearings, etc., so we can move on to item 7, engineering. Centennial Drive paving quote. Joe?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was just gonna see, David, did you get one of the copies of that document?
I did.
I didn't know, sit over here.
Actually scared me.
Huh?
He scared me.
Come on. Whoa, whoa,
You must be hurrying to see us all at once.
You came in late, we already tried to talk to you.
Well, I'm gonna try myself.
I gotta share it. If I can work. So-
There's two over here. though.
Centennial Drive quotes. If you recall, we've been looking into upgrading Centennial Drive, which is currently a gravel road coming off of Highway 56. And since we built a fire station there, it'd be nice to get that road upgraded with paving. And we've looked at upgrading it all the way from 56 down to the corner where the existing pavement ends. And we had put together some documents to help the city with soliciting quotes. And we'd actually put these together back in late April, and they were presented to you at your May council meeting. And at that time, we had estimated the cost of a little over $100,000 for construction. And the law at that time said that if you're over $100,000, you had to go through the competitive bidding process. Threshold for just soliciting direct quotes was under $100,000. But the legislature, the state legislature, had passed a law in the meantime that threshold is going to be changing come August 1st, going from $100,000 to $175,000. So the strategy was to put this project on the shelf and then wait until the August 1st law took effect that increased the threshold, so then we could just solicit direct quotes for the work. So the city has solicited quotes for the work. 5 invitations were sent out to different contractors. Out of those 5, there was no response from 2. 1 responded and said they were too busy, so they declined to submit a quote. 2 contractors did submit a quote. And we summarized those quotes in comparison to our estimate, and that's on the single sheet that's here.
Yeah.
Doug, there's one right under your eye case there. Yeah. So that compares the first column is our engineer's estimate, and then the second column is the quote from Rochester Sand and Gravel. The third column is the quote from Bituminous Materials. So you can see both quotes, they're very consistent with each other. Rochester Sand and Gravel is $120,954.00. Bituminous Materials is just slightly higher, about 3.5% higher, $124,829.50. Now comparing those to our estimate was $102,300. Well, looking back at this, Wayne and I were talking about this, our estimate was prepared back in late April, before the construction season even started. There was still snow on the ground. So you have to take that estimate that we put together with a grain of salt because it is a little bit dated. And as I was saying to Wayne and Mark before the meeting, if I had re-estimated this project in the middle of July, I very easily could have estimated it at $110,000 or $115,000. So when I look at the quotes, they're very comparable to each other, which means they're competitive, they're reflective of what the marketplace has right now for costs. So I don't see that we've got bad quotes. I think they're both fair quotes. And from an engineering standpoint, I don't have that much heartburn over the difference between my estimate and the quotes because we do have a timing issue in that my estimate's 3.5 months old. The other thing is with this small project, it's more difficult to estimate a small project accurately. You can see just as an example, when there's 19 items, look at item number 16, the concrete valley gutter. There's 310 square feet that we had estimated. We estimated $11 a square foot for a total of $3,410. Rochester Sand and Gravel bid $28 a square foot, but Bituminous Materials bid $14 a square foot. So that's just an example of how on a small project you can get some variations in the prices that can, because it is a small project, it looks like a larger variation than if it's normalized over a bigger project. So I guess long story short is, if it's going to come down to what the city would like to do, how badly do you want to get the road done this year, and do you have the money to pave it? From an engineering perspective, I could support proceeding with one of these quotes to get the work done this year. I think the quotes are fair. I think in terms of the circumstances, they're reasonable and acceptable. If the city wanted to try to get a lower quote, you could reject these quotes and rebid it over the winter. I don't think there's anything to be gained by trying to rebid it again yet this year. I think if you don't accept one of these quotes now, I think you're looking at next spring construction. So then you've got to take into consideration, what do you have to do to get that gravel road ready to get through another winter, and is there going to be some cleanup next spring, and is it better to just get it done now? So that's where I think you're coming from. Engineering, I could support either proceeding now or waiting. So are there other factors that tip the council to doing it now or not?
We've always talked, try to get projects, you want to start a project, get the quotes like in the winter time, so we can get enough bidders, so they can plan their season. Right now, we got 2 guys that, the rest are probably all filled up, and they haven't got any, they can't take anymore.
That's what the one guy said to us.
Which is understandable. So, is it gonna hurt to wait till next spring?
It's kind of the bird in the hand versus 2 in the bush. I mean, you don't know that we're going to get better prices if we wait for the winter. I mean, we don't know what the oil prices are going to do for bituminous.
Exactly.
We don't know what diesel prices are going to do for trucking. And Wayne brought up the point with the whole discussion about tariffs. We don't know if that has any impact on the price of the goods that we're seeing in the materials.
So with these quotes now, are they gonna get it done this year?
Yeah, they had to indicate on their quote what day they would have it done by.
Yes.
And Rochester Sand and Gravel, I think they had it done by the end of October, roughly?
Yeah.
Rochester was November 3rd, BMI was October 31st, so within a week of each other.
Yeah.
6 of one, half
Yep.
a dozen, yes.
So I mean,
And both companies are reputable. I mean, you've
Right.
worked with both of them before. We've
No,
worked with both
both.
of them before. If you were inclined to accept one of the quotes and move forward, I would have no reason not to recommend taking the low quote. The recommendation would be, if you wanted to proceed, would be to take Rochester Sand and Gravel's quote and proceed. But there's not a strong recommendation from the engineering and the cost standpoint either way. It's more, how badly do you want to get the work done? Get one more thing checked off your to-do list. As the public works director was saying, there's a lot of things that need attention in the city, and you put one off until spring, that's just that much more that everything is, pushed back in schedule.
With the same token, if we could save 20,000, which would help go towards other projects.
That's
but
true too, yeah.
That's not a given. It could cost 20,000 more.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And in the meantime, you might have to put a couple grand worth of gravel to get it ready for the winter.
As opposed to two in the bush.
Yeah, that's kind of what it comes down to.
Yeah, I go for the one in the hand.
I wonder what the fire department as a whole would think about getting it done this year as opposed to waiting.
It isn't a matter of the road's gonna close down or anything like that.
Yeah.
It's just, we got gravel, and we're gonna lose some gravel over the winter. With
Well,
your plow.
it's a high washout area on the west end.
Oh,
As you can see in the
absolutely.
parking lot, it is eroding down into the fire hall because of that ditch work that needs to be done. So I mean, our storm basins are, our gravel's washing right into the storm sewer there.
So there's some value associated with the work we got to do
Yeah, there is value,
to prep it for the winter and then to clean it up
yes.
when the spring comes. But Wayne, do you have a strong, what's your perspective from public works?
I would like to pave it because it, like you said earlier, it just log jams up all the work. It delays everything else. It delays the next project. Just keep the ball
I
rolling.
think we tabled too many projects.
I guess it's a fair quote. It's not a great quote. It's a fair quote. And I think if you chose to proceed when it was done, you could probably look back and say, well.
Now, another thing I wonder is,
Price on it.
the quantities are estimates. How generous were those estimates? Is it, because it's on a unit price basis.
It is, correct.
So,
One company did make a comment on that they believe that they could do it with a lot less materials. Like on the 400 ton estimated for the gravel, they estimated they can come in a lot less than that. So this might be just the high side. It could be a lot less than what we're seeing too.
Yeah, I had a designer check that. He did email me here just before the meeting, said the 400 ton was calculated out to be what the road needed. Because remember, there are a couple spots where we're shifting the road a few feet to the north, and we wanted to make sure that we got good, clean gravel put on the surface for shaping, so we didn't have old, dirty aggregate that we were working. We wanted to make sure we had.
We don't wanna cheat on the base.
Right. We don't want to just moving around what's out there now. We want to make sure that we get a sufficient quantity of new aggregate to make sure that we get a decent quality result.
like anything else, you gotta start out with a good base to get a
Right.
good finished product.
Yep. But usually, when we estimate a job, we try and make sure our quantities are, at or above what we're going to need. And ideally, you come in, a few percent under budget when all's said and done. If you came in 5% under, that would save you about $6 grand. 3% under, you'd save about $3,500.
In my opinion, when you made that estimate, that was this spring. These estimates are current. And given that you don't have everything, to work with at that moment, voiding out yours, I'm comfortable with either one of those two, either doing Rochester or BMI. And I feel that, it looks like a lot of money, but at the same time, it could change a little bit. I'd say maybe $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 next year it's possible, or it could be less. I say personally, I'd like to go forward with it.
From a budgetary standpoint, Mark,
Yeah, I
Is
think
it
it's
funded?
fine. Yep. It's,
so it doesn't put you in a bind.
no, it's fine. And I think those are both good quotes, so I don't think, I think you're justified going with the lower of the two quotes. I don't, really think there's any basis not to go with the
They're
lower
both
of the two.
well-known companies that do
So-
good work.
Yeah.
I would tell you, if you're gonna go ahead with it, to go with the lower of the two quotes.
Yeah, and we know they're bidding exactly the same quantities, exactly the same scope of work. They both use the form that we provided for them, so everything is apples to apples.
Well, I think I've heard two
Two.
members say that they were in favor of proceeding. And frankly, I'd rather see it get done now than wait another year. Fred, you're okay with it? Well, it seems we've got a consensus to move ahead with it now.
Do it, put it to a vote?
I
Yeah,
would say, yeah.
Okay. I'll make the motion then.
And I'll second.
Which one,
The motion is
Okay.
to go ahead with it
just,
Okay.
as soon
which
as
one?
Do you
possible.
accept the quote from Rochester?
Rochester Sand and
Yes.
Gravel, yes. To be completed by, what was it, November the 2nd or 3rd, something like that, or
Is that the October one?
could be October 1st.
November 3rd.
November 3rd, okay.
November 3rd.
And that's an estimate just like everything else, so.
Right, when
They
you
were a little bit cautious on that.
This was
but-
the BMI, and that's one of the, this was
So-
the engineers.
Doug made the motion that we proceed with Rochester Sand and Gravel's estimate bid.
Second.
Richard, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Good. Get that out of the way. And we move on to, for some reason it's listed as item C instead of B, but under engineering.
Yes.
Review
That would
the
be-
concept plan of the business park.
so the EDA looked at three, different layouts for this business park on the former Swan property. And I won't go through each one of them, but their preference of the three was number three. And so there was, they liked the layout of three the best because the lots were, more rectangular or squared off. There was 9 lots. There's a road to the side, goes to the east. It runs to the east. And, the three of them are similar in a lot of ways, but they felt that this third one was the best concept plan of the three. And so the idea would be this would be done in 2 or 3 phases. And right now, basically, we're in the process, or CEDA's in the process of applying for funding through the state through deed, I think it's a BDPI program to provide up to half the cost of, the infrastructure, street, et cetera. So, I don't know if there's any questions. It's just an informational item, but I wanted to keep the council in the loop on it, so.
I do have a question on it. When they say industrial park, what type of-
Business park.
Business park, okay.
I think we're looking at this more as a business park. That doesn't mean it would be so much like, like highway commercial or downtown, but that, we have to have some flexibility in what goes in there,
That's what I'm asking.
but not anything. So it's sort of like, I call it business light industrial,
Not consumer oriented business.
highway oriented, things like that, right? So.
No,
Can you
I've
define?
told several people No, you aren't going to be able to open a strip club out there.
Well,
Several people?
And we had several people ask.
At least three people have said that. No,
I think the
Why?
zoning for this probably still has to be kind of
we
determined.
won't get into why.
And I think we have to, we'll probably end up coming with a new zoning district.
Okay.
So that hasn't really been finalized yet, so, you know, I mean, we've talked in, but not, it'll be hard to talk in real specifics, but, you know, more general at this point, and that's part of the reason that, part of this process will be to develop that ordinance to determine what kind of, you know, businesses are gonna go in that park. So,
And is this inside or outside the city limits?
inside.
Inside?
Mhm.
Okay.
The east
Just-
property line of the business park is the east city limit.
Ah, all right.
Any further?
Don't they kind of go hand in hand with the zoning if we're having a business park? Should both of them be talked about at the same time?
Well, we could start
Because
working
I
on
mean,
the
the
zoning.
designs of it, like, I think these are what, I just broke my glasses so I can't read, but I think it says 2.5 acres or two.
The smallest one is 2.2 and the largest one is about 3.2.
Okay,
And
But it's
that's
flexible in that if
the
somebody
number
came in and wanted like 5 or 6 acres, you know, you could put two lots together. So there's some flexibility in that layout of number
And
3, which is one of the things that.
That's the
you
nice thing about this,
Yeah,
this number 3.
we're
So
following
you can't-
what I think
Yeah,
other
yeah.
communities,
throw them together.
you know, especially in southeastern Minnesota, have done with layouts of similar parks, so I think the lot size was, you know, we got input besides Joe and his, you know, company, also with CETA. So we kind of tried to follow, you know, something that would work with that property, that would work with the road going north, but also would have kind of similar to what other communities have done.
yeah, I kind of figured
So-
that that's,
I don't think the
Yeah.
zoning has to be done kind of with this. And the thing is, this is a concept plan, so when we come with the first plat, I mean, it could be changed. And I'm not saying that we want to change it, but this is this isn't like the final design.
Right.
But I mean,
It's
I
not-
think
it's
we
not-
want to know going
Not
in that
plat,
this is the
it's
direction we're
plan.
going to go with this, more or less. But it could be, you know, adjusted if need be.
At this point, it's a preliminary layout that was mainly intended to be used for the funding applications, so that the agencies that were reviewing could have an idea of what you were intending.
And they totally would understand that subject to revision.
yeah, I read over the information that they had sent back on it. Okay.
Any further comments, questions?
Just a quick rundown on the advantages or disadvantages. Disadvantage being the cost, but the off-site improvements.
Well, we've talked with the Public Works Director about how to service with the sewer and water. There is sewer and water on County Boulevard 12, near the southwest corner of the site. However, that water line is a long run dead end line. So extending that up into the business park, extending that dead end and putting demand of those types of businesses on it would put a lot of strain on that water main. So we've looked at the possibility of maybe looping the water main down from Highway 60 from the north and creating more of a looped, you know, that has better consistency of the flow, better consistency of the pressure. You know.
Which is
And
by
we-
far the preferable way
Yep.
to do it.
And we've actually, the administrators had initial conversations with Deed to kind of let them know that we're looking at that, and we've given them a kind of a conceptual figure of how that might work.
Not the rusty water up there.
Yeah. The other thing though is the sanitary right now is out in the middle of County 12 Boulevard. So to pull it down to our business park and into our business park, we'd have to reconstruct County 12 Boulevard to keep, you know, extending the sewer down that road, which adds cost because we're rebuilding the road. The other option would be to pull it off into the ditch, but then that makes it more difficult for Public Works to access with their jetter and you know, their maintenance vehicles. The other drawback with that sewer that's coming up County Boulevard 12 now is it eventually goes into that line that goes through the, by the creek, where the Public Works can't even find all those manholes, and we don't know what we've got down there for I&I. The line's not really accessible, it's one of the older lines in the city. So we're looking at the concept of maybe, just like we're looping the water main up to the north, of taking the sanitary sewer by gravity up to the north,
Mm-hmm.
to connect in with the existing sewer where it stops right now on Highway 60. And the good part of doing that is we'd be coming cross-country across an open field. So we wouldn't have the cost of rebuilding County Highway 12 like we would in putting the sanitary along the southern route. So actually that helps to balance out the costs, which is why when you look at the bottom of that spreadsheet with the cost estimates, the sanitary sewer extension, the north loop and the south loop, the north loop actually shows at first blush to be a little bit cheaper, because in the south extension, so much of that cost is rebuilding the county boulevard. So, you know, when you first think about it, you think, boy, there's a lot more pipe to get that sewer to go to the north. It's got to be a lot more expensive. But when you start looking into it, it's like, well, we've got to rebuild the road over the sewer on the south. It actually starts to balance out those costs, and for the same cost, we can probably build a more reliable system that would go to the north, and actually that would open that property north of this business park for more development, because now you've got a sewer line running through it, a water line running through it, and now you can start to branch off other lateral lines to open up more of that property for development. So, one more reason why that becomes potentially the more attractive option.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, it's possible to lay out for a road going to Highway
Yep.
60 also.
Yep, if we have a utility route going through there, we'll need easements for those utilities. You know, we would try and lay that out to where a future road might go, and then, yeah, it just all starts to lend itself towards, you know, potential future development of that property with utilities, roads, and property development.
Right.
I was out
Property
there.
taxes,
Go ahead.
tax base,
Mm-hmm.
potential of expanding our tax base by making it feasible for people to build there with utilities available.
Yeah. Get that backbone and the infrastructure in there, and it's a lot closer to reality. A lot more, people can see how they could tie into that and develop their property. Because they're not starting from scratch, there's already that spine of the infrastructure there for them to build on.
It's an incentive.
And how much of this can be supported by grants or loans and that sort of thing?
Well, we're trying to, you know, work with USDA as far as, especially USDA won't, and it might be that same community facilities improvement that we use for the fire hall. They won't pay for anything from the park in, but this looping is something that they would look at.
Yeah, okay.
And that may be more toward the loan end, but the thing is, there's other sources that we may look at, like rural water has several different loan programs that are pretty good, and we don't have as much issuance costs and financing costs.
Mhm.
So we'll probably look at things like that because of the amount that we're talking about, you know, between, and the water that would be a KMU thing, so I don't know if the two would be tied together from a financing standpoint, but if it's just the sewer, 300,000, you know, isn't like your normal amount for that you bond for. So we'll look at other sources. I mean, that's not really going to be an issue. It'd be some kind of small financing issue.
Yeah.
But I envision over the winter we'll start planning for this, and then try to get it for next year as a project. And then as far as budgeting goes, and I don't want to put the cart in front of the horse, but there may not be much of the budget this year for it. I mean, for next year, in the next year's budget, but it would be more the year after if we have to start paying it back. You know, some kind of financing.
And could it be that we do the same thing that we've done before, and that we start upping the budgets just to get a head start on it?
Yeah, we might.
Yeah, okay.
Even though we could figure something for debt, part of the debt repayment, but it's not going to be, you know, a ton.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't be hard to do that, right? Exactly.
One thing on that south extension, as far as the line the mystery line that we're not really sure where it is and what its condition it's in, that is part of the I investigation, and by the time there's some decisions, firm decisions to be made, we'll have more information on that. The other side of that coin is it might be overloading the line, even if it is feasible to use it.
Right.
Certainly be nice to know what's there.
Yeah.
We know there's work that needs to be done, but we don't know what. We don't know where exactly it is.
So anyway, no action needs to be taken with that, it's just information, so. I don't know if there's any other questions.
Well, this is a little bit off the subject, but on that line, you know, the unknown. We don't know, do we know when it was put in? Do we know the size?
8-inch.
You know when it was put in?
I don't know what was put in. We just did find the manhole in the ditch, so there's two left to find. We found it last week. So now we can start backtracking from the other way through the woods to find it.
The reason why I'm saying that is I'm wondering if maybe that shouldn't be thoroughly investigated, that whole line, televised, the whole works, to see what we have before we start planning. You know, going ahead with our other projects,
Well,
counting on that line to
That's
be.
kind of where I was going, pointing out that that is part of the I
We
investigation.
already talked about
already.
that. You're not gonna do that.
Yeah, that's already in the
Yeah, we already
works.
plan on, televising that, especially with this coming, that has to be done,
Okay,
so.
Needs to be done in any case.
Yep.
Yeah, but that's even gonna
yeah,
push it up.
yeah, I agree.
So if we're thoroughly discussed that, we move on to legal. Item A, update on accessory structure located behind the post office building, and we've got nothing new on that. Correct, Mark?
Nope,
And then item B, annual refuse license for Semansky Metals roll-off service. Gosh, that seems to be an awfully popular business these days.
yeah, it really does, it's amazing.
They're willing to pay a full year's fee for less than half a year of,
Right.
I'd make a motion, pass it.
I'll second that.
all in favor?
Aye.
So then we get down to number 10, old business. Item A, update on replacement of city entrance signs.
The six entrance signs have been completed. Wayne, I don't know if you talked to her,
The two smaller ones are installed.
they're already installed,
One
yeah.
on 12 going west and 12 going east. I have the first big sign at the shop. It's just a matter of time. Hopefully next week we get the first one up, and then we'll just keep plugging away at them. We're gonna put the first big one up on 56 South, because it'd be the easiest to handle. And then we'll do the one on Highway 60 going to Faribault. Then we're talking about relocating the other two, so we'll have to figure out exactly where we want them and get the locates installed, to install the posts and everything.
So then item B, discuss concept of temporary waiver of residential and commercial building permit fees. Now, there's a little bit of confusion here between different areas or references. The email from Kava, as in my perhaps flawed memory, the last time we discussed this, we had reached a conclusion that we would consider just the city portion of the fees and not a situation where the city would have to pay the county to offset the fees that are just a pass through to them. Am I correct there? Is that the way we?
Yes, that has been my idea all along from the very beginning when I first sent back from Bullhead City.
Yeah.
That piece was, and it got up, oh, it's $10,000, it's various, no, all I say is that and I'd like to try it for 1 year, see what happens, is the city portion of it be dropped.
Yeah,
And that with it, and they pay the county and the rest of it as we go along. See, once, what does happen, I know, I'm just saying from
yeah.
putting my shop together, down there was $2,200 or $2,700. Well, even if you do $2,000, take $500 at above, that's a whole lot of concrete, it's a whole lot of plumbing,
Yeah.
it's a whole lot of electrical.
Anything that
It's
makes a
whole lot.
project less
Yeah.
expensive makes
Yeah.
it more likely.
And what I'm looking at is new, and this is open for discussion, but I'd like to see, for new homes, people coming in, single-family homes, new businesses that are coming in, or even the ones that we have established here now that are gonna do, that have permits to take out, knock that off and let them use that money to build whatever, to help cover the expense of it.
So this would not cover additions and that sort of thing that people would, so it's strictly new building and not just adding on.
Well, if some,
Well,
that's open to
Okay.
discussion on it, but I say this here, for families coming in, considering building a new home, we'll just use that for instance. Take the $500 or whatever it might be and say, here, this is, we're gonna get it back.
Mhm.
And that with it, that it gives, we can put it out on our website, we can put it in the newspapers, we can do whatever to draw people this way to take a look without shopping. And if we can, that's why we have advertising, let's do a little bit and make an incentive into it. 2 cents off on a gallon of gas means something to people. $500 then means something when it comes to laying down a down payment on the property, on their building of it, the whole works.
sometimes has a lot larger psychological impact than actual financial,
Monetary,
but
yeah.
that's an important,
The feel-good
that's
factor.
an important point too. Now, in some of these discussions, we've talked about, when the business park comes online, that we would, well,
Let it,
do we have a good reason to wait that long?
And you could actually look at a different, or maybe more comprehensive for that,
a different view on it.
because I think there you could justify, especially early on to get it going, like doing more with the building permit fees. But even if you just start with a portion of them, we can advertise that, we can put signs up, and Doug probably hit all the other areas that we might advertise, most of them, and yeah, it's, try it and see what happens.
Another thing to consider here that some cities do, that'd be actually the KMU, but foregoing hookup fees. Would be another similar type of thing. That'd be on new construction strictly, but, and as I said, that would really be a KMU decision.
This is something that should be open and discussed with whoever would be involved into it. And you brought up a good point there.
Once you, he's talking about doing this for a year, but once you open this door, you're never gonna close it. She's gonna be forever. Trust me on that one.
Mhm.
It's gonna be, once you do
It's
it,
difficult to take anything
You're not
away
gonna-
once you've given it.
Yeah,
yeah, so you better think real seriously about what you're gonna be doing here. Because it's money out of the taxpayer's pocket.
But what will it generate?
if you get somebody to build because of this, then yes, you're getting the money back. But, and I guess that's the only case you'll get, spend any money.
If they don't
is if
build,
you
you're not
build.
losing.
I'll use this for instance, and I'm using it for my own personal. The shop down there, the taxes on it were originally a little over $300. Now they're over $1,100. Now, where do you
Wait
suppose
till
the
we
money's
rebuild
going?
your street.
Huh?
Wait till we rebuild your street.
Well, we're gonna have to talk to Wayne there about getting a little
Needs
filling
it
down there.
desperately.
But, no, I mean, really thinking about it, yes, you're putting money, you're robbing Peter to pay Paul, or however you wanna go, but I think it's still worth it in the long run. How many different cities, I go to Janesville 4 or 5 times a day right now. They got their signs out there, tax-free base, and, this one, there's various ones you go through. As I've traveled around, there are so many different towns that have a little sign out of some sort that are welcoming business. Kenyon doesn't have one that I know of. We don't do anything. All we're sitting here is waiting, I want the money, I want the money, I want the money. And then you can build. Let's open it up. We want to build businesses here. We want to build this community. Let's help a little bit. Now, Fred's got a point that I'm not going to disagree with, but I do think in the long run, that's what advertising is for. It costs some money. But we'll get it back.
And, I will just say as a side note that I think we do try, when we have new businesses that come in, to work with them, help them in a lot of different ways. Now, maybe we need some more signs put up saying, we welcome business, but, we have our visitor's guide, and, there's more things always that can be done, but I don't think it's correct to say that we don't do anything to help business, because I kind of think we do. So,
Perhaps not beating the drum quite loud enough.
well, I don't know. We do a lot of stuff with existing ones here. But obviously, when somebody comes into town and they're looking for information, help, we try to direct them to resources to help them, just like every other community does. But, so it just depends how far you want to take, and I don't want to, open up that rabbit hole at this point, but, because I know Doug's intention or thought is to try to do more to try to help, grow the economy, which is what, is a good thing.
Yeah. Right now, business is booming. Let's capitalize on it. The more that we can draw people here, I see a connection to our business industrial park. Businesses that would look at it and say, yeah, this is a moving town. They're starting to move. They're doing it this year. Maybe it would be a good investment to build my business in this town. And then if we can say this here, yeah, we're helping along a little bit. We're trying to help. We're inviting people to come. I cannot see why, if nobody takes advantage of it, we're not on anything. I'm asking for a year. 1 year. It's on the books. 1 year. Then we can evaluate it after that.
And clearly with residential, there's, a lot of this business question is what the EDA's been trying to, do for a long time, and that is to try to get more land for businesses to be able to build on, because right now, the lack of sites is the biggest thing that prohibit, that if somebody's coming in here from the outside and they want to put a whole new business up, that's probably the biggest thing that's prohibiting that right now. Where single-family homes or homes in general, we have lots, and the idea is to get the lots filled up faster. So this, maybe will at least give us something to advertise, to help market.
Advertise Kenyon is the field.
And then see how it goes.
We'll build it and you'll come.
No, not quite.
I like
No.
your idea, Richard.
Well, if we're building a business park, we don't have anybody to move in out there yet. So that's exactly what we're doing.
Well, maybe we do, maybe we don't. We haven't identified that. We haven't been promoting it yet a lot because it's not ready to
At
go.
one point Traxler was going to move out there, except it's taken us so long.
Well, Traxler's looking at,
He didn't qualify.
he's looking at
He didn't
being at
qualify?
60.
Not the retail, he'll have retail, see, that's not.
Right.
Okay,
He can't,
And actually, a lot of his decision was he wanted to be on highway.
yes.
Disability.
Yeah.
So that's a whole different thing, and, you know, we're trying
Okay.
to do everything we can to help him. And I think if he moves ahead, we'll be helping him quite a bit.
The extending of the sanitary sewer and looping that water that way.
That would get.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah,
long
uh-huh.
term, but right, that'll help. And
So
if he goes
anyway,
out on the highway, that's
We
gonna
are
open
building
up
it and
more
hopefully people will come.
area, but the land right now is, I can tell you, is the biggest, you know, problem we have. So, and we are addressing that.
Yep.
Well, are we,
So at this
Tabling
point,
this
I
matter,
haven't
or
heard
just
anything about huge dollars that we would be getting rid of by having these permits forgiven. If
City
my-
portion.
Yes, okay. However we decided to structure it, I have not heard $10,000-$20,000, no. I guess, so I'm in favor of it because we don't really have any details yet as to what we'd be giving away.
Well, you can figure it's about 20% of the cost of a building permit, give or take, is gonna be our portion,
And what is the
25%.
cost of a building permit?
Well, it could be anywhere from $50 to,
So it's not-
4,000 or 5,000.
Okay, so it's negligible. You know, it's
on
$5,000
a
and you say 20%.
$2 million
so that's-
commercial, it's gonna be maybe $20,000, but we
Oh,
don't have
okay.
those very often.
But I would
So
say,
maybe $2,000 we're
I
giving
would-
away at the most.
I would say if there was somebody to come in with $1 million or whatever it was, wanted to build here, there'd be a lot of people standing out here, let's
Another-
build, let them come. And this is
Yeah.
what I'm looking at.
Yes, uh-huh.
I actually think though, you have to take each case individually, because everybody's gonna have different requirements.
Yes, uh-huh.
And I'd like to be a little more flexible as to,
Yes, and that's what I'm saying, is we don't have any concrete facts yet as to what we'd be giving away and how much that would cost us.
and
So I guess I'm in favor of it until something more is ironed out.
Yes, until, I'm in agreement with that too. But we-
If it looks like we're gonna be giving $10,000 away,
Or
yeah,
50
I don't
cents,
think we can.
no, I don't agree with
once
that.
you open this door up, she's open forever.
Yeah.
No,
We're not
if we
gonna-
put
we're not gonna
it,
close it.
if we put term limits on it to 1 year,
No,
It's
that
over
won't,
within
that
1
won't
year.
work. That will not work.
why won't it?
As soon as
Well-
you get one person that comes through the door and we forgive, then the next person says, well, how come you don't give me the same deal?
These are the rules of the road.
Then you got them mad, because say if somebody a year from now, or after we do this,
Yeah.
they come in or 13 months and they apply for the permit, and how come I don't get the break? Well, it's within that year. Now you got a mad person.
Okay,
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
open 1 year and we open it up for review by the council at that particular time.
well, I could write that right into the motion, but I'm seeing points on both sides of the game here. I agree with Fred that it's awfully hard once you've given something to take it back, once people know about
But look at the IRS, they do that every
it.
year.
I don't think we want to use that as a model for how we should conduct our business. But, well, I'm certainly not ready to make a motion on this at this point. What I would say was, Mark, we need to put a little bit more burden on your shoulders and try to.
Well, we need
try
to talk
come
about
up
some
with
specifics
estimates
with
of
this.
What it really would.
And the specifics being, what are you gonna apply it to? And right, we can come back and say, this is what the city portion would be, or the non-county portion over a period of time. we can say what it is for new homes, based on a couple value gradients, things like that. And then
And
the
they-
thing is, we need to make it specific to what? Now, my strong recommendation is gonna be new construction. It's not gonna be renovations or additions. It's gonna be new construction for single-family homes if you decide to go that route. And owner occupied, I'm not so concerned about that. The EDA had talked about trying to do some kind of down payment or down payment assistance for people. That was clearly would have been geared at single-family, owner-occupied built homes, not spec homes. But this is a little different, and if a spec home is built, and this increases the amount of homes that are built, they're going to be sold to somebody. So that to me isn't a big deal, but I think you have to make it specific to new construction, and you have to make it specific to, with commercial, the same thing.
I guess what I'm asking is, how difficult would it be to go back into the historic data for, say, the last 2 years or whatever, 3 years, whatever number you want to
Yeah,
pick,
we can
and
come
come up
up with,
with a number of
yeah, we can do
what it would be what it would have been if we had done it then.
Yeah, we
So we've
can,
got some kind of hard number.
we can do that. I mean, it's not going to be that difficult to do that.
Yeah, because it would be nice to find out what the ramifications of the different
Right.
options would be.
And the ramifications of, in general terms, if we're only talking the city portion of it, and you say it's going to be for a year, it's going to be a lot less difficult to go back and plug that back in again than if you were going to say, either have cut the building permit fees in half or higher from a incentive standpoint. But if you're talking 25%, it's not going to be as difficult to start that back up again. If you're talking about a lot higher number, it's going to be like Fred said, it is going to be hard. And the only way to find out if this is going to help is, to try it out and, market it and see what happens. I don't know, how it's going to do with single family homes. I don't know if we're going to have, instead of going from 6 or 7 in 1 year, we're going to go to 10. I guess the only way to find out is to try it.
Well, nothing we do is
And-
gonna affect housing starts for the rest of this year.
My thing with commercial right now is, I'm sort of split on this. The single family part of it, I think we've got the land, and it goes back to what I was saying about the land again. So to try to fill that up faster, I could see that direct correlation. Now with the commercial end of it, until we get this business park going, or until Traxler gets some land open up, like along 60, there isn't gonna be, it's gonna be a difficult, situation to get more commercial in here. I mean, in general terms, that's not to say somebody may not come in and wanna build something, and so I don't know if that's gonna be as effective of an incentive to get them to come in here. I think when you have land and you say, okay, we're gonna incentive the sale of the land costs, we're gonna help with, I'm talking in general terms here, we're gonna help with utility costs and also with the building permit costs. All of a sudden, we can lay out a list of incentives, so when somebody comes in here and they're looking at multiple communities, we can show them what we have physically, and we can show incentives we can provide. But if you have one commercial come in here that's already here, for example, I don't think it's gonna really make that much difference, to be honest with you. But I think when we get some land and we can really start marketing things, I think it may help. I mean, and then I think you can tie it to other things and say, we have multiple things that can help, not just one thing.
Mhm.
And if a company's looking at different sites, that will help. But the other, thing now that we're dealing with everywhere that really changes the whole game with, the whole idea of trying to attract business is labor. And the fact is, we're not in a situation anymore where we say, okay, each community throws money at somebody and they come here. If a business has been successful, they know they need labor, and they've got it, and that's a whole different. It's not that you can't offer incentives for labor, because when you do marketing, you do, in effect, customized training, working with the state, things like that to help. But that labor is the most important thing out there. It's not gonna be the incentives, it's labor, flat out.
So we start offering service.
Well, to a point. If it's somebody like Myers, for example,
Serfs,
you know,
SCRS.
if it's somebody like Myers that came and bought an existing building, the labor thing isn't a big deal to them, they're very small. But if you have somebody come in here that's gonna employ, 20, 30 people, they're looking long and hard where they're gonna get labor from. They're not looking at, well, we're gonna get cheaper land, or we're gonna get more incentives into place. They're talking survival, they gotta get workers, so that's what's gonna be the cog that's gonna get them to go somewhere.
The labor is.
So when you talk about attraction, you're gonna hear me say this a lot, but the attraction thing is a whole different thing now. It's a whole different universe than it was when I was an economic development director for a county, 20 years ago. It's a completely different thing. So to say that we're competing against other small towns, we do offer incentives, we wanna do that, but if you don't have the labor thing figured out, and every business is different, it's a whole different thing. So the building permit thing, I think for commercial right now, I don't know what to say about that, because I don't know, honestly, to be honest with you, I don't think it's gonna make that much of a difference. Single family though,
So if we
it
get,
will make a difference.
so if we get residential here, people that are here would be an incentive for
Right,
people to work locally, to buy locally, which may generate another store or two, grocery store or whatever it might be. Keep the jewelry stores open.
right, so there's a direct benefit to getting more people in here.
Everything,
Right.
yes, and that's
Absolutely.
why I'm saying, but I didn't spell it out that way, was we need to, which I said earlier, was to have houses built here, people to live here, so that people that are considering building here commercial wise
Mhm.
have resources of manpower. That, yeah, there are people here that seems to be a thriving town, so we should be able to glean some of our employees, future employees, from here.
Yeah,
Or,
absolutely.
let's put it, and a lot of them look at it too, okay, we're gonna build here, but where's our employees gonna live?
Yeah, they look at
So
that,
this way we have to look, you have to look at it in a lot of different ways. And I think one of the ways that we can do it is by just plainly offering, we've got, like you say, we've got land for homes, for property, okay, let's go with it. Give it a start.
we
see
have
what
that,
happens.
and we see people
Yeah.
coming.
Yes, let's,
Commercial, we don't have it so much, and so it's kind of hard to try to attract when you
Well,
don't have.
we've spent a lot of time discussing this and expressed a lot of opinions. I don't think anybody is ready right now to move forward with a
well, it's
plan,
been on the,
but thank you, Doug.
As usual,
I wanna
it's
read-
tabled.
that,
I said, as usual, it gets tabled.
No, I'm asking that, I don't think we need to do a formal motion to direct staff to investigate this, but I would like to see some actual numbers.
Yeah, we can do
Do
that.
this by next month's meeting. So, okay, let us say we table it until we get some hard figures to know what kind of money we're actually talking about.
And then we come up with the specifics of how it's gonna be applied.
Yes.
And I will tell you,
Yeah,
next
you
month
could
I'll say the
probably-
same thing. Commercial, I'm kinda,
yeah.
today.
You could figure.
When you have that
out
business part, though,
scenarios there.
I'm not gonna just say the city portion per se, I'm gonna say more of it should be looked at.
Okay.
Because we're trying to offer everything we can incentive-wise to get people out there. I mean, we're not giving the whole ship away, or, everything away here, but I think where we're at right now, no, I'm not sure that's really gonna make that much difference, but single-family homes, yeah, that's,
Okay, I'll go along with
I mean,
that.
that's just my, recommendation.
So that's in the minutes now that we're
Considering.
expecting to have further more solid information at the following meeting. Okay,
Okay?
Okay.
acceptable to everyone? Good, let us move on. Now we're into the meeting already. We move on to new business.